Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Hey,
gentlemen,
hi.
How are you? Very generous of you with the introduction and the opening. Very strong, the visuals and everything in your opening of your show. Very, very good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I realized we have to do a whole other show just to list all of your credits.
It's true.
I'm very lucky to still be working at age 71. I'm kind of shocked. I never thought I'd be working this long, but I love it.
Oh man, you look amazing. Do you still enjoy it?
I do. I started in 1967 in a show called My Three Sons. I had one day's work, and I've been working ever since. And just, hey, I don't care if you're in the storm door industry or sell used cars. If you're working 54 years in any business, you're lucky, I think.
Absolutely. Can I tell you, my mom's such a huge fan of My Three Sons, and I told her you were coming on the show, and she was like a school, like just giddy.
John, it's so sweet. John, would you tell her, give her my love, please? Give my best to your mom.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on the show because I love learning about climate change. I like learning about what can be done, and I try to stay as conscious of it as possible. You're like steps ahead of everybody, not only me. I mean, there's too much, it seems like, but it seems like you've got a great handle on it. You have new cleaning products that are plant safe, animal safe, which is huge for me because I'm a big animal guy. I've always had pets and, always worried about cleaning products. And because I'm a cat guy and cats get into everything. So I'm just super interested. What made you, have the impetus to start developing this kind of stuff?
Animals and kids had a lot to do with it for me because, I've always had pets, cats and dogs and what have you, and their paws are on the floor all the time and they're licking their paws. And little kids are crawling around the floor and putting stuff in their mouth and licking their hands or what have you, putting their toes in their mouth. And that's just the way kids and pets are. So you want to, and I've asked people to make their homes more energy efficient, seal them up, good insulation, put, weather stripping around, all that's great, but you don't want hazardous waste site near your house. You certainly don't want it in your house under the sink where most people have all this toxic stuff, so you want to have the most natural cleaners. That's one of the things I started in 1970. I got rid of all the toxic cleaners. I started using baking soda instead of, Comet. I started using vinegar and water instead of the harsh cleaners. But a lot of that stuff, it cleans okay, but it doesn't clean great. So I wanted to launch a line of cleaning products that were earth-friendly and safe around pets and kids, but also clean very well. So it's Begley's earth-responsible products. You don't need to remember any of that. Just go to edbegley.com or go to Amazon, look for Begley Cleaning. 2 words, Begley Cleaning at Amazon or any other search engine, and you'll find it.
Yeah. And that was cool too, because when I had you coming on the show or whatever, I looked them up and they're really easy to find. You don't have to go anywhere. Like you just said, it's super easy on Amazon, super easy on your website. And I was doing a little research on them too. I just like, because I've used a ton of cleaning products. Obviously everybody has. And you've all done that thing where you're going to clean something and a little bit of it gets inside you and literally just makes you choke immediately. I feel like cleaning products should not do that to you.
Not at all.
They're supposed to be,
I woke up to it when we were out there. We're having a protest about a hazardous waste site, in Love Canal. I'm friends with some people there. I went to a military school there in Niagara Falls, at Lewiston, New York, right near the falls. And so I was protesting the hazardous waste site. And I went, wait a minute, what about the hazardous waste site, in our homes? I gotta help people, get to that place where they can get rid of that stuff, not just near their homes, but in their homes under the sink. So I decided to look for and finally found some products that were clean and green, and I've been working with that company ever since. It's called Laplane. They make great products.
That's incredible. I remember living in an apartment complex when I was younger and just finding out like the shortcuts they would take, some of these people would take, because I was sick or congested, and then I started researching stuff online and realizing that they weren't using environmentally safe products in the walls, for insulation or when they were going through. And I didn't realize how much that actually makes you ill.
It can make you quite sick. And a lot of people have chemical sensitivity, extreme chemical sensitivity, and it can be really just debilitating for them. And so you want to use as much non-toxic paints and coatings and stay away from the formaldehydes and the toxic glues and the toxic paints and all that. And it's all possible nowadays. There's lots of great selections. I'm not even going to really plug my cleaning products anymore. Go get some good 7th generation stuff too. It works great. Get some of these other cleaning products. There's other great companies out there. If you want to buy mine, that's well. Thank you. But there's other great cleaning products. Stay away from the toxic stuff, and get something that's clean and green, and you're going to be a lot happier.
I want to ask you some questions about solar power, because I feel like for a while, and I could be wrong, but for a while they were offering plans or for homes. There were people that were used to come around and they used to help you kind of, get paneling on your housing and stuff like that. I live in New Jersey. I remember that when I was younger, and then suddenly it stopped. And I feel like there isn't that much, there isn't people offering some kind of a deal or some kind of free thing to do it. It seems to cost a fortune, especially where I live. Is there a reason that they stopped doing that kind of stuff, or is there a way around that, or something I could do to hopefully get solar paneling eventually back in my town?
My memory is, and I hope I'm right, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but in some states, they kept refilling the pot of money, the subsidies available to do that. I don't know that they've refilled that pot recently with funding for solar in Jersey, but in other states they have. They keep doing it and passing new laws and more money in California so we can get to 100% green. But back in 1970, when I started, what I wanted was solar, but I couldn't afford it. So I did all the cheap and easy stuff I could afford. Then it was 20 years later, 2 decades before I could afford solar electric. It was a decade and a half, 15 years before I could afford solar hot water. So I've had solar hot water since 85, solar electric since 1990, and it runs my house and charges my car now for, my gosh, what is that? That's 1990, 30 some odd years, isn't it? 31 years I've had
31 years.
Nice clean green. And, and in 85, I bought a wind turbine in the California desert as part of the wind farm. So I've really been on clean power by the amount of, offsetting my carbon footprint. I put out 17 or 15 to 17 homes worth of power with that wind turbine, part of a wind farm since 1985. So I've done my part for a few decades now, and it's getting easier for everybody to do. And I hope it's easy in every state.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I would really love to get on that bandwagon and try to do that kind of stuff. Not only does it reduce your carbon footprint, but I would think what people don't understand is that over time, it actually winds up costing them less, doesn't it?
It does, if you do it right, with the right subsidies and what have you. There's lots of companies in different states that do it for no money down from you. It costs you nothing to do it. Basically, what they do is they lease you the solar system for your house. So you pay, let's say, $100 a month for the solar lease, but you save $120 a month on your electric bill. So you're putting $20 a month in your pocket going, I didn't spend $70,000 like that idiot Begley did back in the early 90s, and I got as much solar as him, you moron. What are you doing? So some people can do, and that's well, but I own mine. So, and now I got a new LEED Platinum home. Rochelle wore me down finally. My wife wanted more closet space. So it's we started, we'll give you a little bigger closet in the house. And finally, with all the plans, the way they're getting bigger, we couldn't fit that house that she wanted. And what I wanted was solar panels and a vegetable garden on our small lot in my home in Studio City. So we moved a mile east and we built what's called a LEED Platinum home. And LEED is a rating system for homes, like miles per gallon for homes. And there's silver, gold, and then there's platinum way up here. We did platinum. I got 9 kilowatts of solar that I own, and I've got solar hot water, 2 4x10 solar panels for hot water. I've got solar for the pool, a 10,000-gallon rainwater tank buried underground, a beautiful raised bed vegetable garden, lots of fruit trees that are fed by gray water, and on and on. Everything about the house is clean and green, and it will save me money over my life and my kids and my grandkids' life if they choose to live here.
Yeah. I got to tell you right now, I'm getting the impression that Ed Begley Jr. Is single-handedly holding the Earth's environment together.
I've had a small role in it, but there's so many people doing so much more than me. Jane Goodall is a dear friend of mine, what she's done for the environment with her Roots and Shoots program and everything she's done scientifically about chimpanzees has been extraordinary.
Yes.
She's a hero to me. These women who got the air cleaner in LA, like Gladys Mead from the American Lung Association, and Sabrina Schiller and these courageous women and Mary Nichols who kept cleaning up the air at every turn. We have 4 times the cars in LA since 1970, millions more people, but a fraction of the smog. That's a real success story.
Wow.
We proved that we can
that
do
is
it
incredible.
by cleaning up cars and cleaning up power plants. And some guys helped like me, but it was mostly women that did it. I got to be honest, guys. They did a great job, and now things are cleaner and greener, and I'm very proud to be part of their team.
It's cool. I went online and you can actually see a time lapse video of what LA used to look like versus what it looks like now. So that which is one of those things I wish people, like more people, could see, because I feel like it's hard to wrap everyone's brain around the concept of, yes, incremental changes do wind up benefiting us and benefiting the society and cleaning up the air and all that other stuff. I feel like that information needs to get out there more, and the news needs to really kind of push it.
You got to tell the good news stories too. It's not all just bad news, doom and gloom. Now, I hasten to add, even though we're cleaning up the air in most of LA, there's people around the ports of Los Angeles, the port of Long Beach, around shipping centers, fulfillment centers with lots of diesel trucks, where there's lots of air pollution there. They need to get relief too. We've made the air generally cleaner in LA, but there's specific areas we got to help those people and get to clean air everywhere, and we can do that. So we got more work to do. But we've proven that we can do it. If you pick the right technology and everybody pulls together, you can save water, you can save energy, you can clean up the air. We had a big problem with ozone depletion. You guys probably remember back when you were kids in the 80s, we had that big ozone hole. And that hole is not the same size, it's not bigger, it's smaller, because we all banned CFCs. And they said, you can't do that. You won't be able to buy an air conditioner. You won't be able to buy refrigerators anymore. You can still buy a refrigerator. You can still buy an air conditioner. They just changed the kind of chemical compound that is used as a coolant. Like instead of Freon, it's a different chemical compound. And it didn't destroy the ozone the way the previous chemicals did. So we've proven that we can do big things, and we need to do more.
Yes, I completely agree. A few years ago, I don't remember what award show it was. It was probably the Oscars, but Jeff Bridges made this great speech about how it was kind of, you remember this one? It was like up to us and incremental changes or whatever. Do you still feel, I mean, I don't know, it was a few years ago. Do you still feel it could be shifted by the people, by us, as opposed to waiting for government to really get involved and push those steps? I'm conflicted by that.
You're conflicted for good reason. It's a sticky one, because I push this thing, I focused on kind of personal action, and that's part of it. But these people out there, again, mostly women, protesting these hazardous waste sites, community activists that have stopped these pipelines and things, they're really part of it too. So the 3 pillars that do it: personal action, like what I'm doing, and I'm also involved in the other 2, thank God. Good legislation, like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and other things about greenhouse gases that we've done, and corporate responsibility. You need all 3 columns the right, equal size. Otherwise, things are going to get wobbly. And so you need to have personal action, good legislation, and corporate responsibility. And they each interact with each other. If people are buying, they want to buy, as I did, more energy efficient light bulbs, that creates a market for them. And GE will start making them, and Panasonic will start making them, as they did. You get people like me that wanting to buy solar panels. They're going to make cheaper and better solar panels. They're all interrelated. We never would have cleaned up the air in LA with all of our actions, and me riding a bike and all this stuff, if we didn't have the Clean Air Act as our weapon to go to the Air Resources Board and say, we have to, by law, here's the law, the Clean Air Act, and we need to clean it up. We couldn't have cleaned up the Cuyahoga River near Cleveland if we didn't have the Clean Water Act, both of which, by the way, were signed by an environmental radical by the name of Richard Nixon. It's bad when you get people like Richard Nixon say, we got to clean up the air. This is crazy. He vetoed the Clean Water Act the first time, but the second time around, then in votes, he signed the Clean Water Act too. So, I mean, we can do this. Proving it should be a nonpartisan issue, a bipartisan issue. We can do it. My dad was a conservative that liked to conserve. We turn off the lights, we turn off water, we save string, we save tinfoil. He was a son of Irish immigrants. He lived through the Great Depression. So all this green stuff that I got from him, a guy from the other side of the aisle from me. And I love my dad. He was a great dad and a great actor, and I miss him still.
Yes, your dad's. I was just telling your dad's incredible, and he had an amazing career as well. And it's cool to see that your dad was because my stepdad was very, very conservative, but also understood that these steps need to be taken and that kind of stuff needs to be done. And I feel like it's not a foreign concept for this issue to be bipartisan. Only in the last, obviously, 4 years did it become this bizarre kind of, disinformation and yelling at the other side and trying to say it's a hoax and all that other stuff. Do you feel? I mean, obviously, there's a sense of being more confident now that Biden's in office because it's just kind of a return to sanity to some extent.
Yeah, it's
but
unfortunate because there's a long history of Teddy Roosevelt creating the national park system. Because we wanted to get these clean air rules passed. We go to Sherry Bollitt, a Republican, or John Chafee or Lincoln Chafee, these people who would help us from the other side of the aisle because they knew it was important. George Bush, the first, George Bush, he got the acid rain tackled in a meaningful way with legislation that dealt with acid rain. And that's the way it should be. We should be working together on this because there's no Republican kids or Democrat kids. It's just kids should be breathing clean air. Business people want to breathe clean air, and Republicans and Democrats want to breathe clean air. So we should all work together to achieve those things because long term, it's going to make us money. I certainly accept when they say, well, there's lots of jobs on oil rigs and refineries and coal mines. This is true. But aren't there also jobs making wind turbines and solar panels and electric cars and energy efficient HVAC units and good insulation and energy saving thermostats and energy efficient light bulbs? Of course there are. There's jobs making those things too. And we need to transition, never leaving the workforce out in the cold. You always want to take care of the workers and make sure that they are ready to transition to new jobs and proper training programs so they can be transitioned from other jobs, and that's key to it. You want to leave the workforce, in a strong position.
Absolutely. And I always thought that was such BS when they talk about how, there, like you said, it's true. There are all these jobs in oil rigs, but there are also jobs making the environmentally friendly stuff because we, in the job market, just in general, we've created so many jobs that don't even need to exist. I used to have, when I was working a day job, back in before, doing stand-up or whatever, I had 5 different managers. 5. They didn't all need to have jobs, but they made they made up titles for people because people need to work. And it's so ridiculous to me when they go, well, these oil rig guys, they're not going to have any. That's ridiculous. At least make it up. Then if you don't feel like, we're doing it anyway. People have these remedial, meaningless jobs sometimes in like low-level positions. Do it for them then too. There's stuff to go around.
We have so many positive comments coming through too that people are saying, just how the shingles are getting more efficient with the solar panels where it went from being such a giant thing. Now we have shingles that you can change into. And then somebody was asking, tearing down the rainforest and deforestation. What are your views on that? They feel like it's crazy what's happening.
My contribution to that years ago, back in the 80s when I started to hear about it, was to remain committed to something I did back in 1970. I became a vegetarian. I stopped eating meat. And a lot of those rainforest, areas were taken down to raise cattle. So I tried to, I was successful in not having a hand in that. Then I heard about the palm oil, where they were taking down the rainforest in Borneo and elsewhere so that they could, have plantations for palm oil. So I read the labels and stay away from palm oil and any formulas and what have you. I try to do that. So we all have everything's connected. We have to do that. I want to say one more thing about the thing with the oil rigs and all of that. Those are also dangerous jobs. 11 people, sadly, tragically died in that Deepwater Horizon oil rig. I think that was 2011. I believe it was the same year. 19 people died at Massey Coal. I don't want us to have any more people die so we can have cheap energy.
Agreed.
Solar is getting cheaper and wind's getting cheaper. And with good battery power, what have you, and other ways of storing energy. There's many ways to store energy. Batteries are just one of them. And we can have power when the lights go out, at nighttime and what have you, when the sun goes down and what have you. We can certainly continue to have power. And it's possible. I've proven it here. I have 2 big Tesla power walls hooked up to this house. So I have solar during the day, of course, and I have it at night because of the power walls, and they also shave off my peak power usage to save me money. It's just a good financial thing to have that kind of battery backup. I haven't bought an expensive kilowatt hour, that is to say from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. in I don't know how many years. I just don't have to buy it because I got battery backup. So there's ways to do it that save you money. And because of my dad, God bless him, I'm a very conservative financially, and I'm very careful about money. I never wanted to waste it.
That's incredible, and I'm going to have to ask you for your help with that after the show because I'm just not good with any of that. Speaking of like Tesla, thank you. Speaking of Tesla cars and stuff, do you see a point in time where those are going to be affordable to people for everybody? Because Tesla, I feel like if people had affordable access to those kind of vehicles and stuff like that, you wouldn't be stopping anybody from getting them. Same way with I was vegetarian for 3 years and then fell off the wagon because I'm a terrible person. And then I've tried to be, I'm going to eventually become vegan. I know it, but it's just, it's just a process when I'm on the road doing stand up and stuff. It's hard
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Do what you can, just maybe one day a week at first, maybe 2, build up to 3. Do what you can when you can. I'm not a hardcore guy that gets in people's face about what they put on the plate. If I did, what people drive and the house they live in, I wouldn't have any friends if I judged people by their diet, their houses, their cars. So I love my friends, and everybody does what they can. And I couldn't afford solar years ago. I couldn't afford a Tesla till a year and a half ago. I bought a Tesla as my late in life kind of gift to myself. I was doing a TV series and I could afford it. I would buy a Nissan Leaf, and had that for a while. That was a fairly reasonable car, not super cheap, but it was like $30,000 for that car. And a good electric car. Before that, I had the EV1, which I leased. Before that, I had a Toyota RAV4 electric. But before that, back in the early 90s, when I was really broke, I bought an electric car for $1,700. I'm going to repeat that, $1,700.
Wow.
A guy was selling it in Illinois. It was a kit car. He'd taken a '73 Subaru and converted to electric. So let me be clear, that at a top speed of about 40 miles an hour. Took 4 blocks to get up to 40 miles an hour. But let me go further back. In 1970, I had a Taylor Dunn electric car. Now, when I say car, being quite grand, we're talking about a golf cart with a windshield wiper and a horn. It didn't have a steering wheel. It had a tiller. So, I've had, and that car was $950. So when I was a struggling actor and for years thereafter, I had very inexpensive cars, for many, many years. And finally, late in life, when I was semi-retired and, working a lot still, thank God, I could afford to buy a fancy car like I did with a Tesla a year and a half ago. But do what you can. There's inexpensive cars out there that are plug-in hybrids and pure electrics, and there's some used electrics that are out there that are pretty good buys. And do what you can. Nobody should be expected to go into debt doing any of this stuff. You want to do what you can afford and nothing more.
Which is such a sensible statement, right? I feel like people feel like that it's too expensive to do, but it's just like you said, it's attainable. If you look into it, I feel like and sometimes it makes more financial sense to be on the right side. In
1970, when I started, I was broke and struggling actor. My dad had just died a few days from the first Earth Day, and I did everything that I could. I wanted solar panels, but I knew I couldn't afford them. 1970, solar panels were hard to find and super expensive. But I could ride my bike, I could ride the bus, I could become a vegetarian, I could use baking soda instead of Comet, I could use vinegar and water instead of Formula 409. Everything that I did, turn the thermostat down in the winter, up in the summer, all that stuff, cheap and easy stuff. I saved dough right away and kept moving up the ladder as I saved more money. Pretty soon I could afford a solar oven. Pretty soon I could afford a rain barrel to collect some rainwater. And it took me 15 years from the first Earth Day till I could afford solar, and still not solar electric. It was solar hot water I could afford in '85. Then 20 years after the first Earth Day when I started, I could then finally afford, in 1990, I could afford solar electric, and I've had it ever since.
Wonderful.
That's incredible.
Do what you can, folks.
Yeah, that's a great message. Because it does sometimes feel like a little bit overwhelming, where you're just like, I'm either not doing enough, or I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Because even like when my friend and I are out on the road, she's a great comic, and we'll go out, we'll travel together all the time. She's vegetarian, and I feel like when I'm with her, I'm like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and she finds great places when we're on the road just to eat, like Impossible Burgers or Beyond Burgers or like anything like that. So I'm super, super good about it when I'm with her. And then when I'm by myself at like 2:00 in the morning, I'm like, I'm starving. I got to stop at a fast food. Like, I'm just like, I can't do this. I don't know what to eat.
None of us are perfect. You do what you can. But nowadays they have those Impossible Burgers, I think at Carl's Jr. and places like that.
Yes.
So,
Burger King.
Yeah.
Burger King. That's right. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I even got them. I'm so glad they started selling them at the supermarket next to me, and I can just grill them now on the grill or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's so good.
I felt like a difference in energy, like physical energy, from being more plant-based than being meat. Like me and my wife did it. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a couple of years back. So I was like, I read up on it, and I was like, for neurological, plant-based is so much better, keeps you way healthier. So I was like, let's just give it a shot. So we started it for 2 weeks. That turned into, we did it for a good year and a half and felt great. And then I fell off the wagon, and I'm like, I got to get back on this. And I've just started to, like, same thing, like ease out of the meats and this and that, because your body physically feels it. You know, I feel like
send your wife good vibes. Tell her I'll be thinking of her, and I hope she stays nice and healthy.
Absolutely. Knock on wood, we're blessed. Like, she's doing very well. Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that you're a cyclist too. You advocate for bicycling. I bike everywhere. My friends and I always talk about, like, one of my friends and I bike like all the time. He lives up north. I live down south or whatever, but I try to bike like 10 miles a day. And even if I need to go to the store or whatever like that, I take my bike to do it. Such an easy thing to do. And I feel like that's a baby step in the right direction to just keeping environmentally, friendly.
It's one of the most energy efficient means of ground transportation man has ever invented. You can argue correctly, I suppose, that a sailboat is more energy efficient. You can sail around the world in that on wind.
Well played.
But there's no other form of ground transportation that is as energy efficient. What I mean by that is you can't make enough ethanol or methanol or anything out of an ear of corn and a bowl of rice to go 30 miles. But you can make up energy for a human by eating an ear of corn and a bowl of rice to go 30 miles. That will get to 30 miles. Bowl of rice and an ear of corn will do that. Or any combination thereof. A veggie burger, you slice and dice it any way you want to get to that portion of food. You can't. You need a bushel of corn to make enough ethanol to go 30 miles. That's just what you need. It's the way it works.
Yeah.
But it's very energy efficient riding a bicycle. And so something I always try to do, even in my advanced years, I don't ride as I used to over to Santa Monica from Studio City at the drop of a hat, or I don't ride up to Ojai from Studio City as I used to. But I ride some nice rides, and I ride around for errands and chores and what have you. And I like it. It's a good way to get around as a codger.
Oh yeah, it's it's the best. I'd love to get your opinion on this kind of thing, because I feel like this is a huge debate. It's been going on for a while. And again, this is one of those things that I'm kind of torn by. So cryptocurrency has become incredibly huge thanks to, obviously Elon Musk messing with the system and doing whatever the hell he does. But he's been kind of talking about it. But there's a lot of talk about the amount of energy it consumes. But versus the way we mine for gold, I'm curious, you get your opinion on, maybe, I guess what would be the term that you would call it? A temporary set, maybe like a 2 steps back kind of a thing where, like, cryptocurrency uses a lot of energy, but 74% of it is reusable, right? And right now they're trying to get it to 100%, obviously. And they're saying that over time that it will become that, as opposed to when people mine for gold and what we use now with, the gold standard, there's risks to people's livelihood, to their own lives, and the amount of terrain we disrupt and everything. Do you have any opinion on that kind of a thing, or what one's better than the other? Or?
I've never invested in any cryptocurrency myself because I've heard about some of those energy challenges and what have you. And it's certainly true that gold mining is a very destructive process and what have you. Lots of harsh chemicals used to mine for gold. So I'd steer clear of that. I don't have any gold in a safe deposit box or anything, and we're no longer on. A dollar bill used to be called a silver certificate. It said it was worth a certain amount of silver stored somewhere, and gold the same. But they don't really. International monetary funds and the Federal Reserve, none of that really has much to do with gold anymore. But I hope they make it cleaner, because I know a lot of people believe in cryptocurrency, and I'm in a wait and see mode myself to see how it goes with the cleaner energy to manage it and all of that, and how volatile it is just as an investment. But if they can make it cleaner, which, as we all, 3 of us who sit here know, you can make energy more energy efficient and cleaner. So I hope they do that with that and everything else we're using energy on.
Right. It's very interesting that Elon Musk, who is such a big proponent in Tesla and clean energy and clean driving, is also such a proponent of cryptocurrency, which is such a drain on the energy system, which is it's almost baffling, right? So hopefully he could find a way.
I'm trying to reconcile that myself. I'm trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah,
So,
it is kind of confusing because on one hand, there's people who are like, hey, look, this is actually going to better the environment, and then on the other hand, you have morons like running cryptocurrency machines in an old volcano, and you're just like, what? What did they just do? I'm like, oh, it kills me. The other thing I was curious about too is you have your garden is fascinating. You did something with it that nobody's ever done before. Could you talk about a little bit of that?
I have a great garden. I've got raised beds, a lovely garden that I grow a lot of my food in. And also I've got a gray water system where I have all the water that comes from the tub, the shower, and the laundry and all that, instead of being what they call black water, which is water from a garbage disposal or from a toilet. That's, sludge basically that's hard to process, but people process it in the municipalities all across the land, across the country and the world. But gray water is very easy to process. You just let it run without restraining it. You let it run. These are the most efficient systems that I found with gray water. You let it flow by gravity down to these mulch pits around your trees. If you have fruit trees, which I do, and then it works very well. Gray water works very well with stone fruit trees if you're growing trees with it, and that's what I do. And it filters through the mulch and what have you. And it doesn't, you can't use it around lettuce and things like that, obviously. You could have some gray water on the lettuce when you're done, and then you get very sick. But for trees, what have you, it's perfect. So that's how I water all my trees, is through excess water, recycled water. And as I think I mentioned earlier, I have a 10,000-gallon rainwater tank buried underground, and that flows by gravity in the rainwater tank. Then there's a submersible pump in the tank that pumps it up to a bladder. There's another name for expansion tank, and that gives it pressure. So when you turn on the valve, just like you do with a regular hose bib anywhere in America, you turn on the valve with your hose, and that's coming out. It's basically rainwater from 6 months before, and so it's a lovely system, and you can fill it up even in a drought year. People say, "I love you got your rain tank, but we've had a drought here." Even with like 2 inches of rain, you fill up a 10,000-gallon tank easy. If you have enough space on your roof, which I do, I have a lot of space, so it's very good for that. To be honest, I wish I had room, wish I'd had the money to put in 2 tanks, because eventually, come July or August, I'm out of the rainwater from when we last had it in April or May. So I'm now using city water, but I got lots of months of free water, if you will. And we can do that throughout LA. We can save a lot of water, and saving water also saves energy, because it costs a lot of electricity, uses a lot of electricity to pump it up over the Tehachapi Mountains or other mountains coming from, the Central Valley, other places we get water from. And so saving water saves energy, and it's a good way to go, a good way to garden too. And it's a non-toxic garden, and I'm always growing something year round. That's the nature of California. You can grow year round.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
I love that. So do you see? You're very optimistic, I feel like, about, because I think if you dive too deep sometimes into climate change and the environment, I've heard people say we've got 30 years tops left, which is not a great feeling when especially if you've got like kids and stuff like that, or you got people who've got kids. But I feel like you're very optimistic with that. Do you feel like there's a good chance we'll be able to reverse this kind of stuff over the years? Because I lived in New Jersey for a while, and I lived in Arizona, California, New Jersey, New York, or whatever. But we've had more tornadoes here than I ever imagined. I mean, we never had them when I was a kid, and in the last week we've had 5, and they're kind of small. I mean, they're not like ripping up houses just yet, but we've seen them go down streets or whatever. We don't have basements. Like I get an alarm on my phone at like 4:30 in the morning that's like, seek shelter, and I'm like, I live on the shore. I have no shelter. But it's do you think that's going to be something that we all wind up having to live with, and we'll just stave it back a little bit, or do you think we could go back to like zero again?
Just as I said earlier, I don't want to constantly be focusing on bad news. I don't want to be accused and to be rightly accused by saying Ed said everything's going to be fine, because that's not true either. It's somewhere in between. That is to say, we can still save a lot if we act soon. And I mean by soon, I mean now. If not, there's going to be there's stuff in the pipeline right now as regards CO2 and the loss of coral reefs and other stuff, species loss, that have happened already. are going to happen with what the amount of warming in the ocean and other challenges that we face. There's stuff, no matter what we do, that's going to happen. But don't you want to save what's left, the other half?
Yes.
We need to do everything we can to save. Let's call it the other half. Maybe it's the other 2/3. Maybe it's the other 4/5. I don't know that it's going to be that high, but maybe it's the last fifth or 2/5. That we'll be saving somewhere in there. Let's say, for sake of argument, half that we can still save of coral reefs and other stuff that we rely on. There's a web of life that supports us all. If you don't give a damn about spotted owls because of spotted owls and what they're supposed to be, to us, do it for your own good. Don't let the canary die in the coal mine and say, I'm not going to pay any attention to that. There's a web of life that supports us all. And all that land out there that people think is wasted because it doesn't have a strip mall on it, or a factory. It's out there. It's the real factories that we need to live on, to survive, to have clean water, clean air, healthy food. All that's very important by having that web of life that supports us all. And any smart tinkerer saves all the pieces. You don't want to pull a clock apart and go, well, I don't think I need this gear anymore. You need all those pieces. Yeah. And so we have to begin to do that. The idea of taking down the Smithsonian building in Washington, D.C., because there's a good market for bricks. I don't think that was something that would fly. People would rightly, I know one of them, be out there protesting. This is a beautiful old building, been around for many years. I know there's a good market for bricks. Let's not take down the Smithsonian, though. That's what we're doing with our native forests. Quit taking down the native forests because there's a good market for timber. There's other ways to build houses, with other materials. I built my house out of steel. And I know steel has pollution in the manufacture thereof, but there's a lot of energy used to cut down a tree, to ship a tree, to kiln dry a tree too. There's a lot of energy. And the great thing about steel is it's 65% post-consumer recycled. That is to say, what used to be a frying pan was once a car. What used to be a car is now a frying pan. That's why they have those giant magnets and those big recycling yards and junk yards. They have those big magnets for a reason. They're mining ore in America, in the junkyards of America. They're mining iron ore that's already been refined. It's not just ore anymore. It's actual steel that takes energy to melt. I'm aware of that. I'm not unaware of that. But it's less energy than going out and digging and doing it all again and, getting iron ore and refining it and putting in the larger ovens and doing more work to make it into a frying pan or a car. The same way, that's why aluminum cans are one of the big success stories with recycling. They can afford to pay that much for an aluminum can for deposit because it's so valuable, rather than go to mine some bauxite in Jamaica, wherever you get your bauxite, and ship it here and refine it and do all that. Just mine it in the alleys of America and the curbs of America and make it into new aluminum with a lot less energy expended. And that's why they do it. That's why it's a success story. It just makes more sense from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's just, I love the information that you're giving out because that's what people need to hear. That's one of the things that I wanted to learn about and needed to hear more of because I didn't know half of that stuff. So thank you for doing that. I love, by the way, I'm looking at the background of your office right now. I'm assuming you're in your office. I love the Oscar just hanging out.
Oh, that's my father's Oscar. Where is it? Over there?
Yeah.
Right there.
No, it's over there. Let me get out of the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. You see it?
I can.
That's my father's Oscar. He won it for Sweet Bird of Youth. That was a wonderful movie with Paul Newman and Geraldine Page. He was also in 12 Angry Men, a great movie called 12 Angry Men. Great classic film. Great actors in that film. But he left me in his will. He left me his Academy Award. He must have really liked me. I'm so grateful for that. What a great thing. I didn't know he liked me. He actually loved me, I suppose, and I loved him. He was a great dad and a great actor. So I have his Tony Award and I have his Oscar and many other awards. He won in a few that I won too, and I'm very lucky to be his son and to still be working in his business. That's why I became an actor, because I wanted to do what he did.
That's very sweet, man. That's awesome.
Could have been that, or it could have been you have the same name. So I was like, somebody's got to use it.
That's right.
It was a smooth transition. Just you mutter the junior part of it, and you're like,
that's right.
Oh, that's incredible. Do you have? So I got to tell you this story, man, because it's hilarious to me. So I had a couple months ago, I had Mike Farrell on the show,
I love him.
Me too. He's great. He came on twice. He was amazing. And then he was just asking me casually who was coming on next. So I had Ed Asner coming on right after Mike. So Mike goes, I love Ed Asner. I'm a good friend of him. He's a good friend of mine. Tell Ed that I said hi. I said, absolutely. I'll tell Ed that you said hi. Ed Asner comes on the show. I'm completely unaware of how hilariously surly he can be. So one of the first things I say is, I was like, hey, by the way, Mike Farrell came on the show. He told me to tell you he loves you and to say hello. And Ed goes, fuck him.
That's Ed for you.
I was just like, what the?
You'll never sugarcoat it.
Yeah. So then Mike Farrell calls me the other day, asks me about, how the show went with Ed or whatever. I tell him what he said. He's cracking up. And then I was like, yeah, Ed Asner said a bunch of nice stuff too. So then he goes, well, who else do you have coming up? And I said, I have Ed Begley Jr. coming on. And he goes, I love Ed Begley Jr. Tell him I said hello. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah. And he goes,
not only do I love him, he's my neighbor. He lives like right around the corner.
Oh, no way. That's great. Yeah.
He and Shelley are wonderful people. They're great neighbors. They're great people.
Yeah, they were lovely to talk. Last time I spoke to him, he was like, let me know when you're in LA, when you're back in California, when I'm back on tour. I'll be back out there in the fall. But I just wanted to, pass it along and make sure if you had anything to say to him that you wanted me to relay.
I love him. Tell him and Shelley to come on by and have a cup of coffee soon. I love them. They're great neighbors and great friends, great citizens, both of them.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. But all of you. I love that I get to talk. I mean, it's really been, I'm a huge, political guy. I've been to protests. I've gotten, I've said this a million times on the show. People are tired of it, but I won't go into the story, but I got detained by Secret Service protesting Bush's second term when I was 19. But I love getting to talk to you guys. And, you've been inspirations to me and all your environmental work and your activism and stuff. And just your career as an actor, man, is so incredible. You've been I wasn't even kidding when I said before it would take a whole other show to list your credits. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your career. Is there something in particular that because you have done so much? I mean, obviously St. Elsewhere, you got, nominated for a whole, slew of Emmys for that, a Golden Globe nomination. You've been in a ton of movies. Is there something in your career at this point that you love looking back on fondly, that a role that you really enjoyed?
There's a few answers to that question. I'll give them to you. The best running job had a lot of life to it that lasted a long time. It's right there. Sorry, over here. St. Elsewhere. A great show that I loved doing for many, many years. St. Elsewhere was a great job with great people, with Denzel who's featured prominently there, and David Morrison, Bill Daniels, and Ed Flanders. Great actors, great actresses. Bonnie Bartlett and Christina Pickles. Excellent people, all of them. That was the greatest sustaining job. The work I'm proudest of would be in those Chris Guest movies, Best in Show and A Mighty Wind.
And Spinal Tap.
Even though I have a small part in it, the movie is so great. I have a small part in The In-Laws too, but it's such a great movie with Peter Falk and Alan Arkin. It's on the top of my list for movies I've been in.
One of my top favorite movies.
Thank you. I just love that movie too. And of course, this is Spinal Tap, still a classic. And all the Chris Guest movies are so wonderful to be in and to watch. Working with Meryl Streep was one of the highlights of my life as an actor. To work with her was such a treat. In She-Devil.
In She-Devil, yeah. And I was going to ask you, what was it like being fought over by Roseanne Barr and Meryl Streep in the same movie?
It was so much fun. Doing a movie like that is fun, and both of them are so funny. They're brilliant comedians, both of them. Great. Meryl is, of course, a great dramatic actress, but just a brilliant comedian too. She's so funny and smart. We had a great time making the movie, and then I worked for Roseanne too on some episodes of her show after that. Not episodes plural, just one now that I think of it. But I just love those ladies and to work with them, and to work with my dear friend for many years back, Nicholas, to work with him in Going South was an incredible treat. To work with Bob Hoskins, a treat beyond words. I worked with Bob Hoskins, Michael Caine, and John Lithgow in a movie called World War II when Lions Roared. It was an NBC movie. a mini series, and it was just wonderful. So I've worked with great people, and continuing to have a great time doing these shows over the years, like Better Call Saul and Arrested Development and 6 Feet Under, and I'm just blessed that I get to work on these shows I'm working on now.
You are brilliant on Curb Your Enthusiasm, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love that show. That's one of my favorite shows ever. Larry is just such a genius. I met him back at the show Fridays back in 1980. And he's just an amazing talent. He's always, and then on Saturday Night Live, when I hosted the show in '84, he was one of the writers. And fortunately, his sketch finally made it to the air show, made it to the final cut and what have you when they did the full show. And just hysterically funny, that segment that he wrote for Saturday Night Live in 1984 was every bit as funny as any scene from Seinfeld or any Curb or anything. He was always brilliant from the get-go. And finally, America and the people in broadcasting woke up to it.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. I love the story of him quitting SNL. It has basically worked its way into Seinfeld. When he said he had the outburst and he quit, and then he realized what he had done, and he came back to work the next day like nothing happened. It's just amazing.
Right. He's the best.
Is it? Do you like? So I mean, because you're comedically, you're brilliant in everything, and I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, but like really, like as far as like dramatic acting roles go, you can't be topped. And also, you're very, very good with comedy, and you're very, very good around other comedians and just letting them be themselves. And you're hilarious in your own right. Is it one of those things that you find that you have to turn something off to do one or the other, or do you do that kind of like a natural flow? Like, this is a comedy, I'm going to play it how it should be played, and vice versa?
It's kind of the same in the doing. That is to say, you have to find the truth for it to be either dramatically compelling or to be funny. But the difference is there's no wiggle room with comedy. It's either funny or it isn't. Dramatic, you say, well, that was an interesting choice. I can see what he was thinking there. And that moved me, that there's like 6 different ways that can be. There's a laugh or there isn't in a comedy. The audience is very immediate. There's no like, that's just the way it is. But there was a guy, his name was, I'll think of his name, Roy London. Roy London, yes, Roy London. Very talented acting coach, and he worked with a lot of good people. And I worked with him on this show back in 1993, I guess it was. Doesn't matter. Let's say 93. And so I was working with him, and one day we're working on some scenes to get them right before I went and shot them with this acting coach, Roy London. He said, Ed, you know what I think is here's a good thing to think of when you start to outline the script and work on your character. The most interesting thing I think to watch is how a character deals with pain. Okay, let's go to the top of the scene and do it. And I thought, well, that's a big bunch of bullshit I've ever heard. Oh, I want to see a character in pain. I'm in pain. Oh, my stomach hurts and my veins hurt. And then I driving home and I thought, no, idiot. That's not what he said. He didn't say to watch a character in pain, how a character deals with pain. How Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice keeps a lid on the thing till you realize what her character's choice was, what Sophie's Choice in fact was.
Right.
And what's going on with her the whole movie. To see Laurel and Hardy carry a piano down the stairs and fall carrying a goddamn piano down the stairs, and then the piano falls on top of them. Yes. It's hysterically funny, but they're in pain. It's how they deal with pain. And you think of every slapstick comedy, guy slipping on a banana peel or any of that stuff, any of it, dramatic or comedy, how a character deals with pain, and you get to see a little bit of it between the reeds, between the bushes. Yeah. You get to see the character try to keep the lid on it. De Niro in Mean Streets and the early work of the guy after he's been shot, trying to walk and keep walking along after he's been shot, and all that stuff and everything. He did. I mean, it's Joaquin Phoenix to see, pick any character that he's ever done in any movie, how his character deals with the pain of what he's going through in the story of anything Joaquin Phoenix does. And you'll see, Roy London was a genius. It's absolutely true. How a character deals with pain is what's compelling to watch, comedy or drama. And the more you keep that real and immediate, so you shock the audiences, Meryl did in her work, and as Bob De Niro did in his work, and as Joaquin Phoenix does in his work, and as these other wonderful actresses, Kate Blanchett, just these incredible people do. It's beautiful to watch how our character deals with pain, and the great directors like Martin Scorsese and others know that too. The great comedy directors like, Christopher Guest know it too, and Mitch Hurwitz knows it on Arrested Development and those shows.
Oh yeah, my God.
How a character deals with pain is quite universal, and it's a good thing to know as an actor. I figured it out in 1993 with Roy London's help. I wish somebody had said it earlier.
Yeah.
one of our followers, one of our audience members, she's an actress and a big fan of yours, Jessica Vitale, said, Greedy, she still owns the videotape and watches it all the time with you in it. And she said, bless this mess would make us cry with how honest and transparent you are in that role. Just stole every scene with how sweet and funny you are. That was her comment.
Oh, bless her heart. Tell her thank you. I thank her right now if she's listening.
She's listening, sweet. Absolutely.
I love that show, Bless This Mess. Lake Bell did this wonderful show with Dak Shepard. Just this amazing, amazing show. And me and Pam Grier were in it. Just amazing. The best time I've ever had in television. I can't remember when. Just amazing show. It was on for 2 seasons. So I'm very lucky to have been part of that. And just tell her thanks so much. I'll thank her myself again because I know she's listening. That's very sweet.
She just sent all hearts and thanked. Yeah, thanks back. But absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Pam Grier is amazing too. She's another actress that I just when it's between like you and a bunch of other people that I know and Pam Grier. I love going to a movie or going to see a TV show, and when one of you walks into a scene, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great because you just love that person and you love their work.
Thank you to put me in that crowd with Pam Grier. She is a goddess. To work with her was a treat beyond description. To work 2 years with her up this close, in lots of scenes and what have you. To do funny scenes and dramatic scenes and wonderful stuff with her. I just was blessed. It just the best time I've had in the show, since St. Elsewhere, and that's a high bar to hit.
Wow. That's incredible. I got to ask you about your animation stuff too, because you've done voiceover work, 2 episodes of The Simpsons, which were so good. The episodes that you were in, do you, I feel like you're very easy to poke fun at yourself when you need to. And I love that because I feel like that makes it more approachable, especially when, with activism stuff, you know what I mean? Like if people feel like you're serious about this topic, but you also don't take yourself that seriously, it makes it more palatable to digest. Did you realize that kind of going into The Simpsons? Because they have the Ed Begley solar car. And I remember in that episode, it ran on your self-satisfaction, which is just a beautiful joke.
By my own sense of self-satisfaction. That's right. You got to have a sense of humor about yourself. I got to be honest. Earlier in my career and my activism, I thought, no, I don't want to make fun of the environmental stuff. It's too precious. And that was a mistake on my part. They had a wonderful episode of Friends years before that, and I declined to do it. Not because I didn't want to make fun of myself, but I just thought the environmental stuff, I don't want to. That's right. You can take yourself too seriously in any way, and that's one of them. That you can make fun of that, as they did brilliantly in The Simpsons too, and as they did in the episode. I was not in the episode. It was still a wonderful running gag about me and my electric car holding up traffic, going over Laurel Canyon or something. In this case, I was back east. I was French, so I was somewhere in Jersey. I can't remember where, upstate New York, holding up traffic. But it was very funny show, all of them. And you got to have a sense of humor about yourself, I think, and I aspire to that.
Yeah. We're coming up close to an hour. I want to get you out of here, but I got a couple more questions. Well, not even questions. I just want to let you know. So, I mean, all the stuff that you've done. When I was a kid, I got to tell you, you were the dad in Page Master, one of my all-time favorite kids movies. Loved that movie. Do you remember that?
Very well. I had a great time on that with Macaulay Culkin, and Mel Harris played my wife, I believe. And Chris Lloyd was in it. Whoopi was in it, I believe.
Yep.
Just an incredible.
Patrick Stewart.
Incredible time. Yep. The best time ever. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And also, and by the way, I don't know if anybody, so I say this with all sincerity. I love Alf. Okay. And when I was a kid. Yes. Oh my God. That's so good to hear.
Paul Fusco was a great guy too. He did a character of Alf. He was the guy that did the puppeteering and what have you, supplied the voice for Alf. And a brilliantly funny and very smart guy. A quick story about Paul Fusco. We were doing Hollywood Squares together, and Alf was a center square or whatever. It doesn't matter. He was a square. I was another square. And these people would come in. They would make the future contestants watch the current show that you were taping, and then they would go in and they would take part in the game and try to win money. Somehow these people watching the show beforehand, before they went on, didn't get the common denominator. Me and Paul and everybody had jokes from the writers that were funny jokes. We did a joke and then we'd answer the real answer. Here's the part they got wrong. Paul was never wrong. It's going to sound egocentric. Actually, neither was I. If I would answer something, they were fairly simple questions. What's the sun, planet from the sun, or what have you? And so that's what it would be, and we would never get it wrong. And these people kept thinking, they'd listen to the answer and go, I disagree. Dude, Paul's never wrong. And neither am I, actually. Just get the common thread here. We're not going to try to shake it up at the end and say, be an answer. Just agree with us, for God's sake. Very smart guy, very funny guy, Paul Fusco. I love him.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that you were in Project Alf, because that was like, that was huge for me when I was a kid. They wrapped up the end of the Alf series that I had watched, in reruns and stuff like that. And then you didn't know what happened. And then Project Alf came out and you were the doctor that helped him. And I loved that.
I love being in that. Just great character, great show, great people involved. I had a ball doing it.
That warms my heart that you have fond memories of that, because that was really, I loved that. That's so great, man. And before you go, we ask everybody this question. I would love to get your take on this. We would like to know if you could give yourself, your younger self, at any point in time, a piece of advice, something that you know now that you'd like yourself to know, what would it be?
I'll answer that question in a second. But first of all, I talked about Blessedness and Pam Grier and Lake Bell and Dak Shepard. I did not talk about the genius from it, Liz Merriweather, who did New Girl and many other wonderful shows. She's a genius. Yes. She's the creator of the show. And I'm not sure if I mentioned her name. I got to say it 3 times. Liz Merriweather, Liz Merriweather, Liz Merriweather. She's the greatest ever. What advice would I give myself as a young man?
Yes.
The advice I would give myself as a young man, I'd go back and say, try to find the pain in the scene, how your character deals with pain. That's something I learned in 1993. And also find the salad in the underwear. Do you have time for a very quick story?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely.
There's 2 great actors in a improv group called the Committee. They had as most of their set pieces do. They do improv, but they have what they call set pieces, which are surefire things that always get a laugh. That started as an improv and became what they call a set piece, and they do scripted, if you will, every night. That always gets laughs. And the rest is pure improv, and they really don't cheat on it. It's pure. So this one started as an improv, became a set piece, but it was starting to get stale and wasn't funny anymore. I think it was John Brent. I think it was Chris Ross. These 2 wonderful improv actors. One of them said, I think Chris Ross said, let's go next door for a second and get some salad. We got to go on in a minute. What are you talking about? To do this bit, which is not a lot funny anymore to the audience. Said, I got to get a salad. Took some salad from the guy quickly, and he put it in his underwear, and he pulled open the pants of the guy, and he put salad in his underwear. And they went out and did the same scene. Now, the joke was not that you could see moisture coming out of their underwear. That's not what was a sight gag. There was nothing visible. But they then did the scene with salad in their underwear. And the audience went insane with laughter. They didn't know what it was, the audience, but there are people like the guy who in the spotlight, whatever. What did you guys do different tonight? I don't know what the hell you were doing, but it was brilliant. It was fantastic.
Oh my God.
They found some way to have as a character salad in your underwear, something that just gave you something different, and you had something to challenge you with something. You were in a different part of the universe. Salad in your underwear. Find that as an actor. That's what I tell myself.
Oh, that is beautiful. I will never forget that. That's incredible.
Next audition John goes on, he's definitely going to pick up some romaine.
I'm only going to be wearing salad. That's how I'm going to audition from now on.
You'll love it.
Oh my God. Thank you, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. All the information you gave us, the time you spent with us. It means a lot to me, really. Thank you.
Yes.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
So good to meet you and talk to you. Really a pleasure.
Dystopia tonight.